I'm going to be going over my script from my developer commentary that I've done for Ain't 254, which is making your own unique game mechanic. So my script starts in the player section, which is the ball category. The first thing that really happens is that there's a target placed above the ball which the camera looks at. You can see on the side here it gets placed. Actually, I'll just bring up here. It gets placed 0.5 above the ball, so that the ball isn't like directly in the center of the camera. It's just above, like you see here. This is just so that the ball doesn't get in the way of the camera all the time. Next script would be the camera itself. This is where it gets the axis of the mouse movement, and then the times in here are the sensitivities. The clamp is to make it so that you don't make the camera flip or go too low. I didn't want the player to be able to look too high up. Makes the cursor not visible. This is the script here, which makes the camera smoothly rotate around the player. So it's always looking at the target just above the ball, and it rotates around it at a certain distance the whole time. I made the wall collision script by having a raycast always from the ball position to the camera. So here, the camera raycast. I made this a little function or method, just in case I needed to do any other things from the camera. So it gets the ball, which is the raycast ref, and the transformed position will always equal where the wall hit is, and then the transformed position again gets minused off to the target position, so it gets a little bit closer to the ball. And I just wanted to make it so that it was a little bit closer, because if you just do it straight from the position of the wall hit, it goes through the wall a little bit. Like I'll give you an example, just real quick. I didn't want this to happen all the time. Actually, this is probably a bad place to give an example. Like that, it will be through the wall, the bottom of the floor a lot. I'll give you a better example on a different level. This one's got a good one. So here, you always see through the wall. Whereas if we take this script back on again, see the floor, you don't particularly go too far into it. As soon as that raycast hits the floor, you don't go into it. And it's the same for the side here as well. You don't actually go into the wall unless you get really, really, really close. It just looks a lot better. So next in the ball scripts we have, I'm gonna go with the roll first, because the roll is just adding torque. I had to increase the amount of torque that you could actually give to a thing because it didn't feel fast enough. But yet the movement is controlled by where the camera is facing, and not to do with the Y of the camera either, because otherwise that means you like spin on the spot and stuff. It looks kind of strange. If you're not doing any inputs, like you're not pressing WASD or whatever, I've added some a little bit of artificial friction just because I felt like the friction that I had for the ball was pretty good, like where it like slides around, but that didn't give the player a lot of control when you wanted to stop somewhere. It was really hard to stop because even if you like tapped back on the like if I show you now, if you like see you're on the side, if you like you went like that, it was really hard to get like a steady stop at the end of something like that. But what this does is it slows down your angular velocity on a surface, so it makes it a lot easier to control, to do like little tight jumps. I also added this so that if you're in the air, your angular velocity doesn't get decreased, because for some reason it did before. So this is just to check if it's ice. I never used ice, but if I wanted to add it, it wouldn't be too difficult. This here is for moving platforms. So before, I wasn't able to, I'll go to the level, it makes it easier to explain. This platform here would leave you behind here. So it would leave you behind, so you'd be like rolling this way because it was moving underneath you, so you weren't moving with it, kind of thing. But this just adds you as a child to the object you're on, if it's called a platform, and just makes everything a lot smoother. Now lastly, we have this is last for the ball code, we have the jump. This one is a very, very long one. So I have these just for ease of use to get to, in case I need to use them. Find target is the main script for finding the targets, funnily enough. If you are grounded, oh no, this is to find if you're grounded. So this one is just underneath the player. So there's an invisible sphere just underneath the player to check if they're actually on ground. This is to know that if they can jump or use their homing attack. This sphere here adds all of the collided with objects to a array. So it looks through the list. It looks through the amount that we have here, all stored. So it gets the amount, goes through them, and it checks if any of them have the tag homing attack. And if they do, and you're not currently using the homing attack, and your camera is below a 50-degree angle from the target that you're looking at, from the homing target that you're looking at, then that becomes your current target. You notice that actually I'll go on a different level. Say this level, for example. If you jump and move the camera away, you suddenly aren't targeting that thing. That's the 50-degree thing. So there you go. Now I can't hit it. Just like that. And so if you're closer to a different homing target, it will go for that one instead, and not go for the one that is behind the ball, basically. Next on the update script we have, so you found the target, so now it's under stored homing attack. If it's not null, oh shit, if it's not null, then it becomes selected through this code here. this code is basically going to the target and activating this reticule. All that's on the other script for the reticule is it looks at the camera and it always starts off. So that's just the reticule. So it always starts off. So what the pass-through does is it turns on the reticule. And it also has the amount of time it takes to spawn. Just go back to jump. So it selects it, and it gets the angle again of the target to the ball. And it looks that if it's larger than 7, if the angle is over 50, and you have used homing and you're not currently using your homing attack, there's a lot here. It's just basically checking if it should deselect it. These are all the things that would deselect it. So for example, if using homing is true, but used homing is also true, it's when you're doing this. I'll give you an example. It's when you press space like now. So notice how it doesn't deselect. However, if you've used homing and you're not currently using your homing, so say if you're like back here and you've just gone, you now can't jump to that because you've already used your homing attack. But if you homing attack onto a target, it resets it. So you can just keep like chaining attacks. If you're grounded, the target becomes unselected, as if the velocity is less than 1, or if it's less than 1 or more than -1. So it's just making sure you're actually on the ground properly. Your Y velocity, that is. And if your home attack is not null. If you press space, you go to the jumping function, which is down here. If you're grounded, you jump. You just go up in the air based on jump force. You continue your velocity of X and Y, X and Z even, but you get a new jump force velocity. And once you jump, used homing becomes false, because that's when you're going to start attacking. If you aren't grounded and homing is false, or homing used is false, so like say here, like you've just jumped, if the stored target is nothing, so if you're not aiming at anything, like say currently here, you will launch yourself in the direction of the camera. Now before I had this based on the y-axis of the camera, but people didn't really seem to understand that, and I realized after that I felt that it was a pretty strange mechanic, so I've changed it to be this is why this code is so long. Before it wasn't really long at all, it was like 2 lines, but it gets the direction to camera, which is the forward here, and then it makes that direction of the y-axis 0, so you're just looking based on that. It then gets the angle that the camera is facing, and based on up as well. It then times that angle that you have by 20 degrees. So you'll always go 20 degrees up in the air. If you notice that, it doesn't change no matter where the camera's looking, you're always going 20 degrees upwards in that area. And yeah, that is the direction normalized times the speed of the attack. Oh, yeah, this is the spin, by the way. I forgot about that. So when you do press space, it looks like you've been launched. You spin that way. You spin whatever way you've been launched. And then homing becomes used. However, if your stored target is not null, this is where the cookie is a little bit convoluted. It's your current stored target. So this is the one you are currently moving towards. So using homing becomes true, and homing used becomes true, so that you can't do... Sorry about that. That is my girlfriend. I'll quickly just do that. So homing used becomes true, and using homing becomes true. So you're currently going to be moving towards something. So if we scroll up and continue down our code to here, this is where it continues. So if using homing is true and current stored homing attack is not null, so if you are moving towards something, it does the homing check. Right here. So immediately makes your velocity 0. And it makes the movement in the way of the camera direction. Adds torque and makes you move towards the current stored target at this speed. If the distance is 0.6, which is just over the radius of the sphere, so when it hits it, it doesn't technically hit, it just makes it destroy. It launches the ball off kind of upwards with an angle based on the camera. So if you look at this, it launches it. You can actually change it as well, like that. So it launches it upwards with the same force of a jump. And it does the spawning of the current stored, which is shown here. This is the spawn timer of the target, and it spawns here, not here. Makes it false, and then it gets the spawn time, and then makes it true after it's waited that time. Let's just start continuing through again. If you press E while you're in the air, so when you're not grounded, you launch yourself straight down. Your velocity is at -20 on the y-axis, and you don't have any angular velocity. As soon as you hit the ground and you're ground pounding, your angular velocity is 0. And your normal velocity is 0 as well, sorry. It just makes it so that you are 100% just going straight down with 0 velocity on you. And then it plays the particle effect, which I will show you now. So notice how, even if I'm holding my W key when I'm falling down, I don't spin, because there needs to be no velocity. It's for making very tight jumps. I've gone over this as well. This collision here is if you are like homing attacking currently and you get hit by an object, your homing becomes false and you like launch from the target, because Otherwise, you still continue towards the target even if you got hit. Let's quickly go through the game logic. In next level, we have just the current scene. If the current scene is 0, which is the menu, then you have your cursor. If it enters the trigger, which is a... I'll find it for you. End of level. This thing. Okay, it's the center one here. If you hit that and you're the player, so player, it goes to the next level. It's a public void so that you could have it on the menu screen as well. So it's a click, and this as well here is for the menu screen. Previous level is actually taking you back to the start. Yeah, it just loads the first screen, it loads the menu. So this is for the last level, and it puts you back to the menu. Object move 2 is the moving platforms in my game, or the moving... Oh, sorry, stretching. Where are you? Here. These guys, the moving like blockades that push you. Notice how they slowed down at the sides. I wanted to do that so that it's a lot easier to A, go around them, and B, it makes it easier for the player to get onto certain platforms like this, for example. So it slows down when it reaches here, so you can get onto it very easily. So once it reaches the slow distance, which is determined by the code here, let me quickly find it. This one up here. So this one, the slow distance is 0, so it doesn't actually slow down. Not a good example. This one. This one's slow distance is 2. So once it hits 2 units, it will start to slow down based on this here, and it will be based on its speed. Once it leaves the slow distance, it becomes its normal movement speed. Hence why there are move speed 2 and move speed. And then once it hits the ending position, it then starts going backwards. And then once it hits the starting location, it then goes back around again. So it just like continuously goes back and forth. This I didn't end up using, but if I did, it would have been for a button press somewhere. So that, say if there was a platform here, for example, when it wasn't moving, as soon as you trigger this, so say this is a button here and you press it, it triggers it, and then it would start moving, because it checks if it is triggered. That's the scripts that I have here. That's all of them. So thank you for taking the time to watch it.